Hello everyone, welcome to the session, and let's start this session by a recap of week one. It will be a very quick Kahoot quiz. I believe we should now move on to the week two. Okay, so let me get this and let's see how week two was. Yes, so in the week one white paper went free to your user account. You have to do as much as hands-on as possible, but week two I would say is the most important week here. This is where probably you guys will have to spend most of the time even learning and watching the videos. 6 hours free digital training. uh, this will be the most important learning path for AWS cloud practitioner certification exam. And this includes a lot of things. Even other domains 1, 2, and 4 will also be included in this, but focus more on the AWS core services. In this session, we'll be going through a few of the core services at a high level. 1 hour, 1.5 hour would not be a good enough time to go through in detail for everything, but I try and give you guys a head start so that when you start dwelling more into core services, then it will be easier for you guys. And you use this week to do as much hands-on as possible on the core services. Okay, so we'll start with networking, a basics of networking, and then we'll move on to compute, a bit of storage, and we'll see how we do on the time for database. But for networking perspective, let us start with VPC user guide. How to reach here, let me show you that quickly. I am a more fan of PDF, but in case if you want to do it a web URL, everything is present over web. So you can simply say VPC user guide, and it's going to give you this. And then what I generally do is I just export to PDF and I get the entire PDF for me. And I know in this group there are more experienced people in networking, and they might be probably knowing much more than I do, but I'll try and cover a bit of basics for everyone. And as you can see, it's a quite large document with 375 pages, but we need not go through everything. It will be required very much in detail for Solution Architect Associate, and you would see that by the time you would be completing a Solution Architect Associate certified, whether you have read through this user guide or used some other materials, you would find that you have known everything that is there in this user guide. But for cloud practitioner, we'll keep it at high level, and then we'll start dwelling in from week 5 or 6. So what all we should be covering, at least for cloud practitioner, is, let's see. Obviously, we should be doing this part. Amazon VPC concepts, SMC pricing is okay. We'll be anyways covering that in the next section. How VPC works, yes, this is very important. We should be knowing the terms like default and non-default VPCs, route tables. How do you access internet from a VPC and stuff? So getting started, creating a VPC on your own would be very important for solution architect examination, not for cloud practitioner, but this is something that you guys should be trying it out on your own, probably as a task for this week, to create a custom VPC on your own. We'll see if we have enough time today. We can do it. I can do it so that everyone can have a quick look. Otherwise, we'll go through the default VPCs that are already present. Different types of VPCs and what are the configurations for each VPCs. Again, I would say this is more for Solution Architect Associate and not for cloud practitioner. Subnet sizing, all of this would be very important for Solution Architect Associate, again, because that requires a good amount of hands-on. For Solution Architect Associate, you should be very comfortable understanding these concepts and creating your VPC on your own. But from cloud practitioner perspective, I would say, yes, the security would be important, in which inter-networking traffic privacy. This talks about the security groups and network ACLs. We'll talk about these. These will be important. And what are the differences between these two? We should be knowing at a high level what VPC flow logs does, but not much in detail. Cloud practitioner. Yeah, we should be knowing these terms: internet gateways, NAT. These would be important for even cloud practitioner understanding why are these used. And that's pretty much, like we'll not go much into detail, but we'll try and understand what is Amazon VPC. So Amazon VPC, I would say, is more of a virtual network in the cloud. It it actually it resembles the traditional network. It's just that it is in the cloud. We do provide it a CIDR. When I say CIDR, it's a IP range. So in we give it a IP range. For example, 10.0.0.0/16. For people who are not aware with this notation, it's more like a IP range. It starts from a IP range of 10.0.0.0 to 10.255.255. So there is a website which I can recommend, which is very commonly used to understand these CIDRs, which is CIDR.xyz. So here you can put in any CIDR block. It is going to show you what all ranges it has. So if I put it 10.0.0.0/16, it tells you the first IP is 10.0.0.1, the last IP is 10.0.255.254, and the count is these many IPs are present in this range. So if we assign a VPC this CIDR block, this means that VPC have these many IPs in it, and it can have resources with these many IP. It can even go up till 8. From AWS perspective, the maximum it can be assigned is 16, and the minimum that can be assigned is 28. So if you see 28, then the 16. So this is the minimum CIDR range that can be assigned. Then when it is a 16, not all 16 are available. There are few IPs that are reserved. We'll talk about that, but it's again for solution architect associate. So this is an IP range. Let me get this up. Yeah, this is an IP range that is assigned to a VPC. Okay. Yeah, it's a networking layer of Amazon EC2. So for the key concepts of the terms, virtual private cloud. Okay, this is assigned, any VPC is assigned to a specific region. That's important. So AWS has many regions, as we know. When you create a VPC, it is specific to a specific region. When we talk about subnet is specific to availability zone. So a VPC can be across the region, just like one full region, and a subnet will be multiple availability zones. So for example, I have a region, AWS region here. Then I can have one VPC which will be across the region, and I can assign it a IP address, and then I can have subnets, and this subnet can be for one particular availability zone. Let's say I have two availability zones. AZ1 and AZ2. Then I can have only one subnet. There can be multiple subnets in one availability zone, but one subnet cannot span multiple across availability zones, if that makes sense. Then we have route tables. Route table is a set of rules that are determined where traffic is directed. So again, a route table is associated to one subnet. It tells that, okay, let's say a subnet range is a specific IP address. It tells that if this IP is coming, then where I will be able to route it to. And we'll look that into it more detail. Internet gateway is required if you want to access internet or go out of the private VPC to access the resources. So you need to attach it to a VPC. It is attached at a VPC level. So internet gateway is attached at a VPC level, and there can be only one internet gateway per VPC. and it is a managed resource. That means that it is highly available. It has inherent resilience, so it is not going to be go down, or it's not like just working on just one EC2 instance. It is a managed service from AWS. Then we do have VPC endpoint. We will cover it later. Let's cover the basics first. Then coming to accessing Amazon VPC, again, it would be similar. We will do today itself from the AWS console. We'll see how VPC can be done through the AWS console. We can everything behind the scenes is a API. So we do have a API, and then we have CLI commands and SDK. So it's a generic way of how you can access any AWS resource. So Amazon VPC can be accessed in a similar way. From the pricing perspective, there is no additional charge for VPC as such, but any additional features that we'll be using, like we'll talk about the NAT gateway or private link traffic. So the charges will be based on that, but no additional charge as such for having a VPC and provisioning resources in it. Obviously, there will be charges for the resources that are provisioned, for example, EC2 instance, but not for the VPC or the infrastructure, networking infrastructure that we create around it. Okay, it's PCI DSS compliant, which is fine. So how does VPC works? So as I said, VPCs are logically isolated from other virtual networks. So I can have multiple VPC, and each of them is logically isolated from them. Subnet is important. So a VPC can be divided into multiple subnets. It is a IP range in a specific VPC. So as I said, let's say I have a VPC with the range of 10.0.0.16. I can have multiple subnets, and this subnet need to have a IP range of within this. It cannot be going beyond that. So I can say this IP range is 10.0.0.0/24, and this can be given as 10.0/1.0/24. So these two stay very well within this IP range realm. So these two can be the subnets. And so we can also say that this subnet is in availability zone 1, this subnet is in availability zone 2. And as we said, that any resource that is provisioned, for example, we'll see even in the demo that when we provision a EC2 resource, we need to provide which subnet it is. So any resource will be provided within a specific subnet. So when we provision resource, then to protect this resource, we have multiple ways. When I say protect, it means that protecting the access to this resource. We do it via network ACLs or security groups, and we'll talk about that in detail. Yeah, before that, default and non-default VPCs. So every AWS account, when you have, you'll always have a default VPC in it. That's mainly because when you start provisioning a resource, AWS want to give you a default way to do it, so that you can use those default VPCs to provision those resources. The point here to notice, the default VPCs do have an internet gateway attached. So any resource created within a default VPC would be having access to internet. Yeah. So if you have a default VPC, don't specify a subnet when you launch an instance. The instance is launched into a default VPC. You can launch instance into default VPC without needing to know anything about Amazon VPC. But yeah, Amazon VPC is one of the core concepts, so we need to know it in general if we are becoming architects in Amazon VPC. Route table, as I said, and we'll look into it in more detail. It contains a set of rules called routes that determines whether traffic from your VPC is directed. It tells, and we'll see an example of it, that if a request is originated, then where it should actually be routing it to. For accessing the internet, as I said, we need to have internet gateway attached to a VPC. By default, uh, if you create a new VPC, that is any non-default VPC, then it will not be having an internet gateway attached to it. You need to create an internet gateway and attach it to the VPC, and then create a route so that resources in a subnet can access the internet. And we'll do that, I will show that it's step by step how that can be done. So the default VPC contains internet gateway, but not any VPC that you create on your own. And each default subnet is a public subnet in the default space. Okay, so yeah, this is how a default VPC looks like. So in every region, if you see, so this particular part is a specific region, and you can take it as a EU West 1. I generally use EU West 1, which is the Ireland region, or any other region that you want to work with. You would find that there is a default VPC with the IP address range this assigned to it, 172.31.00/16. It does have multiple subnets attached to it. We'll see that. And these subnets are like this. And they are in multiple availability zones. If you see, this is one subnet. This is another subnet that we have. And these subnets have these IP ranges to it. So when you provision any resource, it will be having a IP address attached to it. We'll mainly talk about our private IPs. And the private IP has to be in the range of this particular subnet IP address range. So this particular subnet IP address range starts from 172.31.0.0. So this particular instance has IP address which is within that range. Similarly here, this particular subnet has IP address within that range. If you see the route tables, and this is where the route table is, each subnet has its own route table. You can attach one route table to multiple subnets. So for both of subnets, the same route table is attached, and it says that any packet that is originated which needs to go to this specific IP address, use the local. So it can talk within these two subnets itself. So in this particular VPC, these two subnets can talk among each other. This is the IP range and local. Any other IP address that is there, which gets originated, and there might be public address IP, then use internet gateway. So this is the internet gateway that is attached at the VPC level, if you see. And any other IP address, for example, from this EC2 instance, if you want to ping Google and see whether you're able to access it, then it's going to use this particular route, going to go to the internet and respond to your ping. So this is how a default VPC looks like. But in case if you create your own VPC, then let's see this. So you created your own VPC and you created your own subnets. So for the VPC that you created on your own, you gave the IP address range of this 10.0.0.0.16. You created the subnets, and these subnets, if you see, we have given the IP address range of 10.0.1.0.24 and 0.24. So these IP address cannot be overlapping, otherwise the routing would not work. So there has to be a non-overlapping IP address within the range. The default route table or the main route table that will be there for any non-default VPC or the non-default subnet is simply which allows communication within that particular VPC. It simply says that it can communicate for any IP address within this range for the local. Any other IP address originating out of this particular destination range or this particular IP address range, it's not going to route to anywhere. To how to make it work, how to make it a route. Generally, the best practice is that if you have a VPC, then most of your workloads would be in a private subnet, which would not be having access to internet. You will be having a public subnet, which will be having to access to internet. So there will be an internet gateway here, and you will be able to access internet gateway. So for example, your database should be sitting here. Your web application might be sitting here, or there are ways to secure web application also by putting a web bastion host in front of it, but we'll talk about that later. But your web application might sit here, which let's say has access to internet, but your database cannot be accessed via internet at all. It can be only accessed by your web application. So this particular subnet should be able to talk from this subnet itself and from nowhere else. And this particular subnet should be able to talk from internet also. So how do we configure that? Is here. So if you see now, we do have a VPC with the internet gateway attached. So if you see in the previous oops, sorry. Yeah. If you see here, yeah, this particular default did not have any internet gateway. So we are going to attach internet gateway to a VPC so that you can access internet. But you're going to ensure that only your public subnet. So this is your public subnet. And this is your private subnet. So your public subnet will be able to access internet. So the route table, so they create a custom route table. It's not a main route table. It's a custom route table that has been created. It says that any IP address from within this range, yeah, communicate locally, which is great. But any other IP address range, then go to internet gateway. And that has been attached to this particular public subnet. For the other subnet, we kept the main route table attached to it without any modifications as of now. And it simply says that any IP address range within this communicate locally. And that's pretty much. So this particular subnet will not be able to communicate with internet directly. Only this can access, and EC2 instances here will be able to access the EC2 instances here via SSH or the other mechanisms to do that. I hope it is clear. Any questions? Let me check if there are any questions. Give me a second. We can create a custom VPC through Feedier. Yes, you can create a custom VPC through Feedier. Yes, pretty much. And VPC does not cost anything, even if it is not a free tier. Creating VPC is free. How can we see that we have created a subnet in one zone and another in different? Okay, when we'll be seeing the demo part of it, hands-on part of it, we'll be able to see that the availability zones. In a 3D architecture, we have to create 3 VPCs. That's perfectly correct. And we can have as many VPCs as possible. Ideally, in a 3-tier architecture, if we talk about with the high availability, there will be 6 VPCs because you will be having it in 2 availability zones. So I'll probably explain that, not now, probably towards the end. I'll explain how a good 3-tier web architecture would look like. What is the role of router here? So the router is what is actually, channeling routing the packets. So this is going to use these route tables to route any requests that are coming in and out of this network. Can we connect all these things one after another with example, if possible? You mean the demo part of it, right? Yes, we can connect all of this, and we'll be looking into the demo. Though it might be very overwhelming for non-technical people in the group, don't worry. These all creating custom VPC on your own will not be required for cloud practitioner. It will be required only for your solution architect associate, and it will be required in depth for solution architect associate, very frankly. Okay, so should we move forward? Yeah, and keep you know messaging in case if you have any questions, and I'll try and answer as much as I can. Now let's move on to the next section. Okay, in this scenario, so this scenario is about let's say a corporate has their own data center of their own, or they have their own corporate network, and they have a resources on AWS, and they want the communication between both uh, AWS resources as well as, as their corporate network. And one way is obviously to do it over the internet, but that will not be a very secure way. So to do it a secure way, we can have a site-to-site VPN connection between the AWS resources and the customer network. So this is a site-to-site VPN connection that has been created. So we have a virtual private gateway, and then we have a customer gateway. So VPG and CG. So these are created so that both can talk to each other. Again, if you see, there is not a public subnet, but a subnet that can talk to the corporate network because it has a route to VGW ID, and there's a subnet which we is only able to communicate with the subnet that is there within the AWS. So this subnet will not be able to talk directly with the corporate network. Okay, moving ahead. Now, there are scenarios where you want to access AWS services from a EC2 instance, and then one because all the AWS services are available publicly, you can always access the AWS services via internet. But as that will not be secure, we can create a VPC endpoint or a private link, which we'll discuss more in the later stages like week 5 6 probably, but on a very high level, to access a AWS service securely from a EC2 instance, a VPC endpoints or a private link is what is required. So accessing resources over internet, it is internet gateway. Accessing resources or for a corporate network, it is VPN to VPN site connection. For accessing AWS resources securely, it is VPC endpoint or a private link. Moving ahead, connecting VPC and networks. Okay, so if there are multiple VPCs, so let's say I have a VPC1 and VPC2, and both needs to talk to each other, then we can peer these VPCs. So we call it VPC peering. And let's say we have another VPC, VPC3, then we have to peer VPC2 and VPC3, but the transitive peering is not there. So in case VPC1 needs to talk to VPC3, there has to be another peering between VPC1 and VPC3. Again, these concepts will be we'll be dealing with these concepts in more detail in Solution Architect Associate. But this VPC peering is good for when there are small number of VPCs, let's say 3 or 4, because of the transitive peering. But in case if you have like hundreds of VPCs and resources in each of the VPCs need to communicate with resources in each other VPCs, then we have transit gateways, which is used to interconnect your VPCs and on-premise networks. So from cloud practitioner perspective, just understand what VPC peering and transit gateways and what is the basic difference. Okay, yeah, this is also another interesting point, private global network consideration. So AWS has its own network uh, laid across worldwide. So any traffic, so that is in an availability zone or between availability zones in any region. So if in a specific region, let's say London region, we have 3 availability zones. So any traffic that is going between these 3 availability zones are out over all AWS global networks. So they have their own network and nothing goes over the internet. It's within the AWS private global network. Any traffic that is between regions, that always has a global network also. Apart from the China region, for all other, let's say London region is talking with a Sydney region, then all the traffic that goes is via the private network that AWS has. that's pretty much that I have to cover here. Let me check. We have not covered security group and network ACLs, so I would like to cover that. So let's go here. Yeah, we'll talk about the security in how we can access this. The two major points here would be these two: the security groups for your VPC and the network ACLs. So any resource that is there, as we said, it is attached to a subnet. So if let's say I have a EC2 instance, it has a subnet, and then it is within a VPC, and that VPC is within a region, right? And this is our resource. So at this resource level, if we are going to uh, kind of protect its access, that which all IP address will be able to access it, at what port number we are going to open the inbound and outbound ports of it, we call it as security groups. At a subnet level, we can again put up firewalls, and we call it as NACLs, which is network access control list. So who are able to control this? So if there are, let's say, two resources here, then both of them would be having the same NACLs, but both of them can be having the same security group or the different security groups. It's based upon how. Is it possible to do VPC peering from different regions? Yes, it is possible. But regions, VPCs across multiple regions can be peered. Okay, so we'll talk about these security group and NACL now. Let me go there. Yeah. So security groups acts as a firewall for associated Amazon EC2 instance, controlling both inbound and outbound traffic at the instance level. So security group is all about the instance level. So this is the important thing, instance level. So when we launch an instance, you can associate it with one or more security groups. Yes, more than one security group can be attached to an EC2 instance. So one or more security group is important. Each instance in your VPC cloud belong to a very different set of security groups, which is fine. And how is it different from network ACL? Is that it's a firewall associated to a subnet. So for here, it's a subnet level. That is important for network ACLs. It also controls both inbound and outbound rules. So flow logs is mainly for capturing the logs of what all traffic is coming in, coming out. And traffic mirroring is mainly to copy the network traffic. So these two are concepts to know and understand, but these two will be really important, and especially for a solution architect associate. There'll be a lot of questions on specifically security group and network ACLs. So we'll do a quick comparison of these two. As I said, security group operates at the instance level, network ACL operates at a subnet level. So this is an important one. Security group rules allow rules only. It's by default, when you say a security group is there, it is deny all. It's not going to allow anything. You need to add specific IP addresses or security groups from which you would like to allow the traffic in. So that's why it says it's only allow rule. Network ACLs, it's both allow and deny. We'll talk about what ordering, depends upon in which order you have created the rules. It has a ordering, and it starts evaluating from the top. Whichever first rule gets met, if it is a allow, it allows. If it is a deny, it is going to deny the traffic. Static group is stateful. What it means is that once you allow it, then the return traffic would be allowed automatically. So it is stateful. From network ACL, you can specifically control what is allowed and what is not allowed. Sorry, what inbound and outbound traffic both can be controlled separately. So it's not that if you have opened the inbound, then you need not open the outbound. You have to open the outbound, otherwise the return traffic would not be there. So return traffic must be explicitly allowed by the rules. Great. Now we will evaluate all rules before deciding whether. Yeah. So for security group, all the rules are evaluated before allowing the traffic. And in network ACL, as I said, in a specific rules in order. So when the first rule is met, then it is done. And the last one applies to an instance only if someone specifically security group with the launch of the instance. Yes, exactly. So as security group is associated with a specific instance, so when there is an instance that is getting launched, you need to associate the security group to it. But in terms of subnet, because the subnet is already there and there is a NACL already present, already attached to it, so if instance is provisioned inside a specific subnet, then those rules are automatically attached to it, to all the instances within that subnet. So these are the major, I would say, differences between security group and network ACL. Let's look at this. Okay, let me see if there are any questions. Is security group's name as route table? What does that mean? I'm not able to understand the question, Shitanshu.
No, Prasad, leave it. Actually, I was a bit confused, but now I am clear for
Okay,
that.
no problem at all. Allow, deny is same as whitelist, backlist. Yeah, it's a similar concept. Whitelist, backlist, IP addresses. Yeah. So if you see this diagram, yeah, this diagram is quite clear in terms of how the network flows. So let's start at a VPC level. So if you want to connect to internet, we have internet gateway. If you want to connect to a corporate network, we do have a virtual private gateway. When the request comes, goes out, it is via router. Router uses the route table to determine where it exactly needs to route the packet to. When it routes a packet based on the uh, route table entry, the first defense here would be like, I would say the first thing is security group, and this is a second layer of defense. But yeah, if you are coming from a top down, it will first check whether the network ACL is allowing the traffic, and it is at a subnet level. So if you see for this particular subnet, we have this NACL attached to it. So in case if yes, then it will go inside, and then for an instance level, even if it is inside the subnet, it needs to evaluate the security group rules to reach to the instance. So if you see in the parallel here, we have a network ACL attached to the subnet, and then we have multiple instances. Each instance has a separate security group. So when a traffic is coming here, it needs to evaluate this particular security group if it needs to reach this instance, and this particular security group if it needs to reach this instance. So to protect your instance, you can first have a security group, then have a network ACL, and then we obviously need to set up the routes accordingly. Again, for any VPC, if you see, there is a CIDR range that is attached, and then each subnet has multiple, each VPC has multiple subnets, and each subnet has its own CIDR range, which is a subset of the CIDR range of the VPC. We do also have IPv6 ranges attached to them. I think that's pretty much that I had to cover from the theory perspective. Okay, where would load balances be between router and gateway? Yes, actually, yes. Your load balancer would be somewhere around here, which is going to distribute your load. And it depends upon whether that particular instance is in a single availability zone or multiple availability zone. Okay. Now, let's jump to the console probably now. I think we can, a lot of theory has happened. So we can go to the console. So how much time we have? 1 hour left. Okay. Let's see how much we'll be able to cover. So in the services for networking content delivery, and then we have VPC here. So if we click on VPC, let us see what all do we have by default. So let me first, so it all depends upon the region. So let me first select a region. I'll go for the London region. So if you see in London region, by default, we have one VPC. We have 3 subnets. So each subnet would be for each availability zone. We have one route table all by default. We have one internet gateway, which is attached to the VPC. We'll look into that. We have network ACL for the subnets. All the 3 subnets are sharing the same network ACL, and the security group. So these are by default that are there present in any region. So even if we go to any other region, let's say Ohio region, you'll see a similar setup. Yeah. We'll move back to the London region. And you can also see all the resources from here itself. You can click on see all region, and it's going to show you. Apart from the island on which I was creating my own custom VPC, everyone has the default VPCs, which is 1. So the subnets, if you see, few of the regions, like for example, US East North Virginia has 6. These are by defaults because it has 6 availability zones. Similarly, we have somewhere 2 and somewhere 4. But most of the regions have 3 availability zones. Okay. So yeah, we'll go to VPC. Good enough. So this is the default VPC that we have. And let us see what all it has. So it's not been given any name, which is fine. But if you see the IP CIDR range, it is 172.31.0.0/16. This is the IP address range that has been provided to it. We do have a route table that is attached to it. We do have a network ACL that is there. Okay, so now we'll go to the subnets to see what all subnets we do have. So we have 3 subnets attached to this VPC, right? So Shitanshu, here is your question: how do we know which availability zone a subnet is? So each availability subnet has specific availability zone. So even if we create one subnet, we need to specify which availability zone that particular subnet is associated with. And as I said, these availability zones are randomized. So availability zone 2A for me in this particular account might be totally different for anyone else with a different account. Then their 2A might be totally a different availability zone. So these are logical names, I would say. We'll go back to the subnets. So these are the 3 subnets that we have, and all 3 have the same route table attached and the same network ACL group attached. So we do not see security group attached to a subnet because security group is at an instance level, not at a subnet level. Next, we'll go to the route table and we see what does the route table look like. So we'll go to the routes. So if you see here, this is attached to specific VPC, just create in the routes. There are 2 routes to it. Any packet from this particular region or this particular destination, it's going to stay within the local. We'll be able to talk within all the 3 subnets. Any IP address range outside this is going to go via internet gateway. And how we will be able to access this internet gateway is we'll see the internet gateway. So if you see here in this internet gateway, this is attached to this particular VPC. I believe we should be able to, yeah, we can detach it from a VPC, and then that particular VPC will not be able to access the resources. That VPC will not be able to access the internet. So these are the like basic building blocks of network: a VPC, subnet, route table, internet gateway. I don't think I've discussed about NAT gateways. Where let me very quickly discuss about the NAT gateways. So in a private subnet, there might be a possibility that you would like to have the outbound traffic, not the inbound traffic. For example, in a private subnet, you have a database, and then you want to, let's say, download the latest version, or like have some patch installed. Then you would need to have the traffic, right? So NAT gateways is mainly placed in your public subnets, which allows one-way traffic into your private subnets. We'll talk about that later in week 5 and week 6, but that's what at a high level it is. Okay, now let's do one thing. We can talk about EC2 instances, but before that, so that we do it, let's create one VPC. We'll quickly create a custom VPC. Okay, so I'll say custom VPC 1. Address range, let me give it slash, give it 16. I'll not be using IPv6 static block for now. A tenancy, it can be dedicated, but that is going to cost a lot, so do not use that. It will be like a dedicated hardware for you. Let's use a shared tenant. Create, and this is not going to cost you anything. So you created a VPC. So now you got a VPC. So this is our new VPC with the ID, let's say, ending with 78DD. Okay, it has IP for range. It has got a main route table. So by default, if you see, a route table has already been created by just creating the VPC. It has created a network ACL by default, a new network ACL. And this is not a default VPC. Okay, so let's look at what the route table is. So if I click here, this particular route table in the routes, it simply says that it is going to be in the local. So the main route table that is created and which is attached by default to the VPC, it does not have any access to the internet. Okay, so we'll go back to the VPCs and we'll also look at the ACL. So by default, the ACL inbound rules is that it is going to allow all traffic, because this is rule 100 is the first rule that's going to get evaluated, and it's going to allow all the traffic by default. So now, but while provisioning resources, we know that we need subnets instead of just a VPC. So we can create subnets. So let's say we have these 3 are default subnets attached to the default VPC, but let's create 2 subnets. Let's say custom subnet 1. To which VPC? We are going to use it with the custom VPC. Availability zones, let's say I'm going to go 2A. The CIDR range, this is attached. How much I will be able to use is we need to be within that particular range itself. So I'm going to use 10.0.0.0/24, which falls within that range. I'm going to create that subnet. So create first subnet. Let me create another subnet. So I'm going to create 2 subnets. In the same VPC, I'll use a different availability zone, and I'm going to use 10.2. So if you see, I create 2 subnets. Both of them have non-overlapping IP CIDR range within the CIDR range of the VPC. Both of them have available 250. So there has to be 255, but as I said, there are reserved 256, but they are reserved IP addresses. So hence they are 251. And then they are in different availability zones. And both of them have the same route table and the same network ACL. Now, let's attach an internet gateway. So I'm going to create an internet gateway. I would say custom internet gateway. I'm going to create internet gateway, and that's pretty much. But here, if you see, this particular gateway is not attached, so it is detached as of now. So what I can do is I can select it. I should be able to attach to a VPC, and I'm going to be able to attach to custom VPC. If you see, now this is attached. Now let's say I create another internet gateway. And now if I try to, now I have 3 internet gateways is detached. If I try to attach this to a VPC, I'll not be able to attach it. So there are just 2 VPCs, and both of them have an internet gateway already attached. So there is no other VPC that is left to attach internet gateway. So this, reiterates that we cannot attach more than one internet gateway to a specific VPC. It's not required. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to delete that. So you have 2 internet gateways. Right now, what I'm going to do is that I have 2 subnets. Both of them now are public. Actually not, reason being your route table does not have route to internet gateway, though the VPC is attached, but it does not have a route to internet gateway. So we'll have to edit the route, and we have to add a specific route. So this says that all the IP addresses, and here it has to be internet gateway. So I'm going to go to internet gateway, and this is the internet gateway that we have customized to view. I'm going to save routes. Now what I've done is that I've edited the main route table, and this main route table is attached to both the subnets, and hence both the subnets now have access to the internet. But this is actually not the way to do it. Generally, you should be having only one public subnet. Resources in that subnet should be able to access resources in another subnet which are private. So instead of doing this, what we should be doing is, I'm going to delete that. This was just to show. So a better way to do is create a route table. Custom route table attached to our VPC. Create. So in this particular route table, because it is attached to that particular VPC, it already has the default route that is going to allow the communication between those subnets. I'm going to edit this, and I'm going to add the route here. I'm doing it only for IPv4. You can also do it for IPv6. Close. And now we have 2 route tables. One is the main route table, which ends with D1F, and the custom route table, which is ends with 3DA. Now in the subnets, what I can do is that custom subnet 1, we can make this as a public subnet. So for that, we'll have to edit the route table association. Instead of route table this, I'm going to associate custom route table. So now in our VPC, we have 2 subnets, custom subnet 1 and custom subnet 2. Custom subnet 1 is associated with a route table which has access to the internet. So this becomes the public subnet. Then we have custom subnet 2, which has attached to the main route table, which does not have access to internet. So this becomes our private subnet. Any questions? Okay, let me check the questions here. Give me 1 second. Why the created VPC is not default in the table? Okay, let me see. I'm trying to understand the question. So there are 2 VPCs. So default VPC, one of the created which is already there is default, which we have created custom is not default. Bhavya, does that answer your question?
Prasad, like, why is it not default? Because whenever we access, it should be default, right?
No. So every you can have only one default VPC. You will be able to access when you provision the sources. You will be able to access all the VPCs, and you will be able to attach it to any VPC. But by default, there will be only one default VPC. You can delete the default VPC and make some other VPC as default. But there cannot be multiple default VPCs, if that makes sense.
Okay. Yeah. Got it.
In ACL, there is a row for deny as well. Yes, there is a row for deny as well. So as I said, let me go back to the network. Why am I not able to see network ACLs? Network ACLs. So, as I said, network ACLs will have multiple rules, and rules will be evaluated as per the rule number. We can have multiple rule numbers, and star would be a catch-all that if it is not able to evaluate anywhere, then it is going to catch all here. But as we have this 100 as the first rule, and it is for all the IP addresses, it is going to catch here. But let's say if it was a specific IP address, then it is going to default to the star, then all the other IP addresses are denied. Okay, let me go back to the next question.
Yeah, okay.
So traffic between two EC2 instances is treated as a local as long as they are in the same VPC. That's true. Even if they are different subnets, that's true. And different in different availability zones. Yes, they are. Yes, that's exactly true. So the traffic between both of them can be restricted if required through network ACLs and security groups. But from a route table perspective, they are considered to be all local if they are in the same VPC. Okay, any other questions, or we will move on to EC2. And for the folks who are non-technical, and this might be too much networking for you guys, do not worry, this will not be required in this much detail in cloud practitioner examination. You should be knowing at a high level what the definition of VPC is, what security groups are, that they are at an instance level, what network NACLs are, that is network ACLs, which is at a subnet level, and the route tables, internet gateway is required for the access to the internet. And that's pretty much. You will not be able have to have dwell into this much creating your own custom VPC. Okay, then quickly we'll move on to our EC2 instance.